The Sure Thing, hosted by the Fanatics Jimmy Kearns and Brian Byrne on the Fanatics Network.
What is up? Welcome in to the Sure Thing on the Fanatics Network. I am your host, as always, Jimmy Kearns, joined by my man Brian Byrne. We also got a special guest here today, Zach Robertson, Pittsburgh Steelers fan, here to help us out with the AFC North, right? That's what we're talking about, not the NFC North. Here to help us out with the AFC North. Before we get into anything, though, let's see what's up with our fellas here. Brian, what's going on, man? What's the good word?
Hey, Jimmy. Glad to be back for another episode of The Sure Thing, another week of talking degenerate gambling with you and more football talk. We got some really exciting things going on with the Fin Network. We're hosting a fantasy football league for multiple fantasy football leagues. For Dolphin fans, we'll have a big giveaway at the end of the year. The grand champion of all the leagues will walk away with 2 tickets to the MetLife Takeover in New York, the Dolphins-Jets game. So that's super exciting. We'll also have a cool Fanatics trophy, and check it out. The first episode of this, it debuted today actually on Spotify. So check that out. Look for us on Twitter at Fin_Addicts and check us out on the YouTube channel, Fanatics Network.
Awesome. I was going to ask you for the plugs because you know what? This guy forgot to do it. Still learning. Zach, what's going on, brother? It's nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to talk about some football. I think kickoff is in 98 days if all goes to plan. It's been an interesting year so far. So some football talk and some actual football should be good.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of, especially with the sports missing, it kind of amplifies everything else. It's a little bit of an escape for people, and not having the normal routine of it. I know I'm feeling it, man. So I'm searching it out everywhere. I'm betting on like my dog chasing his tail, like how many circles he does. I film it and put it up on Snapchat. And then I get, people to throw down 10, 20 on it.
Dude, real talk. Hold on. I got to interrupt you there. I saw on Instagram the other day, there were some dudes betting on, so they're standing in their driveway. They're betting on what color car will be the next to drive by their house. And they're like, 50, it'll be black. And then they wait for the next car.
I like that.
Needed sports betting that bad.
50 is a little steep for something like that when you have literally no odds, nothing going on. But I like that. That's about as degenerate as it gets. Maybe we can get them on the show. Maybe reach out to them on Instagram.
We'll reach out to them.
Yeah.
Have our producers get in contact.
Speaking of degeneracy, before we jump into anything, Zach, why don't you let us, know a little bit how you got into gambling? What do you like to bet on? What are some of the plays you like to make? That kind of stuff. How many units?
I'm honestly a terrible gambler because I usually take the long shots. I like betting on underdogs and hoping to win big on it. Sometimes I hit, sometimes I don't. One of the things, honestly, that I try to stay away from is betting on the Steelers because it's like I'll look at the spreads, I'll look at the over-unders, and I always just end up betting with my heart rather than my mind and losing money.
Yep.
So that's like the one football team I won't bet on because I'm going to bet on them to win every time because I'm an emotional wreck when it comes to the Steelers football. So, but honestly, fighting is my favorite betting sport. It's I love seeing people get knocked out, and I love winning money while it happens. So,
yeah, everyone loves to see a dude just get laid out. There's nothing better, unless you don't want to see yourself get knocked out. But yeah,
Jimmy, where do you stand on that? Do you like to bet on the Dolphins? Do you stay away from betting on the Dolphins?
Oh, we haven't talked about this before. So, man, I might catch some heat for this, but I'm a MOE. I'm money over everything. Me and Lil Wayne. His slogan's a little different, though, I think, but we won't get into that. I will back the Dolphins. They were catching points a lot last year, and it was ridiculous. I won pretty good on the Fins last year. I try not to bet against them unless it's just like super obvious, like they're horrible. New England's great. It's in New England. New England somehow only laying 3 years. You know what I mean? That's even just a made up scenario because I really don't even remember a time. I try not to go against them. Although, like I said on the last show, my uncle got me into the sports betting, especially football. He does like to bet against the Raiders because his thinking is if the Raiders win, he's happy. If the Raiders lose, then at least he covers some of his emotional issues, So it's a good way to hedge some emotional bets, What, you throwing money on the Fins or what? I mean, other than the season-long stuff, you ride with the Fins?
Yeah, I mean, last year, like you said, it was super easy because they started coming on at the end and it never adjusted, right?
No,
Like
they adjusted late.
They beat the Colts and the Eagles, and they were still getting huge pluses. So it definitely cleaned up betting on them at the end of the season. But what I also learned last year betting on the Fins is when the Dolphins lose, I can't feel worse. So, like, if I happen to have just lost $100 on it, it doesn't fuel to the, like I live and die with the games. So if they lose, no matter what, I'm going to feel bad. I don't feel worse if I just lost $50 on it. So it's no big deal. But if they win, it actually does, it's like that. It probably went right when they win. I'm not thinking about the money that I just won, but like the next day when I go to the casino and I cash in my ticket, then it's like, oh yeah, they just beat the Eagles yesterday. That's fantastic.
It's a nice little reminder.
Yeah. It's a nice plus, and there's no loss there. So I enjoy it. And I know the Fins better than anyone. I also like doing some of the prop bets on. Yeah, I will. The prop bets are about the only thing that I would bet against the Dolphins on. Like I'll always take the tight end the Dolphins are playing because they haven't covered a tight end in the past 15 years to go over. So things like that. But I'm like you. I don't bet against the team.
It's crazy because in division they've had one good tight end going against them for the past 15 years, probably, right? Without diving too deep into it, it's been Gronk, and yeah, he always just diced them up. If memory serves me correct, everyone knows.
And every other team's tight end.
But yeah. But with Buffalo, like you wouldn't think the Jets and the Bills tight end should be killing them, But that you got a good angle on that one. What's up with the poll? We got a poll question up or what?
Yeah, absolutely. We always have a poll question, so hopefully it'll lead into the show. I went with, will the Browns make the playoffs?
Oh, I like it. Short and sweet.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about that?
You want to hit that one off first, man?
Yeah, I mean, well, this year they're changing the playoff strategy, right? So I mean, I think the Browns are definitely going to make the playoffs. Whether they're worthy or not, I that's still to be foreseen. But I like what they got going on. I mean, Baker Mayfield, he's just got that it factor, I like to call it. And being an AFC North guy, so quick little side story. 3 years ago, I was sitting at a bar down in Florida when they brought Baker Mayfield in against the Jets, and me and my grandfather cheered for him. And I said, remember this moment when the Browns are kicking the shit out of the Steelers, and we started cheering for Baker Mayfield because that moment could come. And he's looking pretty good. They did okay in their draft, and their position players are just phenomenal. Their receiving core, their running backs. So I definitely have them going to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I'm not going to say too much, Brian, because a little bit of a teaser here. My sure thing of the week involves the Cleveland Browns, so I won't dive into them too much. I think they make the playoffs. I love what they've done. My dog's over here whining and shaking his giant head and drool everywhere. I'm trying to keep him off camera. I love what they've done. The new coach now, Stefanski. I like, and I love Baker. I think he's got that it factor for sure. I agree 100% with Zach. I love the Browns quite a bit this year. I think it's finally all going to come together.
Yeah, I don't want to go too deep into it because we will jump into them, but I like that. I put that poll up because last year, I think a less talented roster and an unproven coach, they were the sweethearts of betting, right? Like they were everybody's pick to make the playoffs. Even there were teams that were people like experts, like people that I like actually listen to that were picking them to win the Super Bowl, the AFC Championship last year, and they definitely underperformed. I think a lot of it is more to do with I feel like Freddie Kitchens is probably one of the worst head coaches that has landed in the NFL in a really long time outside of Adam Gase. So, I think a lot of that landed on him. And so I thought I wanted to put that up there because I feel like that love of last year has completely gone away despite a very good offseason and they're finally getting a coach that knows what he's doing. But we'll definitely circle back to the Browns.
Oh, yeah, we'll be talking about the Browns quite a bit. I got a lot to say about the Cleveland Browns. All right, so why don't we hop in here? We're going to start with the Cincinnati Bengals. So anybody who wasn't with us last week, we're going to go team by team here. We're going to give you the odds for the division, odds to make the playoffs, and the over-under, what the win total's at, what the over for it is, what the under is, and we're going to talk about something we like, something we don't like, if there's a play in there, if there's a stay away. We're going to kick it off with the Cincinnati Bengals, who had the number 1 pick this year. They went with Joe Burrow out of LSU, 2-14 last year, 30th in points scored last year, 25th in points allowed. Have a long way to go, but they think they're saviors there. Brian, what are the numbers for the Bengals?
Yeah, so the Bengals over-under this season is 5.5 games. The over is minus 125, so that's currently getting the money, and the under is plus 105, so it's not a big margin there. We have them to make the playoffs is a yes would net you almost 7 times your money at plus 680, and a no is minus 1,200. So people are definitely thinking they won't make the playoffs. We have to win the AFC North at plus 2,600. So if you're one of those guys that wants to get rich quick, this is a way to do it.
That's a Zach play right there from what he said. That's what it sounds like.
The AFC Championship is plus 7,000, and the Super Bowl is plus 15,000.
I'm over here writing stuff down as we go. I'm not even writing down the AFC Championship or Super Bowl numbers because I'm personally not going to touch on those. So, Brian, why don't we just kick it back to you and give us some thoughts? Is there anything you like, anything you don't like, stay away, or what? What are you telling the people to do here?
Yeah,
I like Bengals.
I like the Bengals offseason additions. They didn't lose too much, besides the Red Rocket and Tyler Eifert's foot. They had a pretty good draft. They basically get 2 first-round picks, 2 top 5 first-round picks this year with Jonah Williams coming back at left tackle. He didn't play last year, so that's a huge get for them. You get AJ Green's coming back this year. Their wide receivers really stepped up with his absence. So I'm really excited about Boyd. Different show, but Boyd in fantasy is one of my favorite later round. Not too late, but he's a steal where he's going. Their defense definitely has some questions, but I think they're better than 5.5 games. There's not a lot of money on that, but I could see myself doing that. I love the money on the playoffs at plus 680. It's a long shot, and I won't tell anyone to go put good money down on the Bengals at plus 680. But if you want to just throw $20 at it and maybe get 7 times your money, it's not a bad. Rookie quarterbacks, you never know. Joe Burrow is going to get every snap in the preseason and training camp. If he lights fire like he did last year at LSU, it's not most people don't come in like Patrick Mahomes. But what if he does? He's got the wide receivers to do it. He has Joe Mixon. The main thing that makes me still out on the Bengals is their head coach. I don't think Zach Taylor is it. Never been a fan. I wasn't a fan when he was in Miami. I think that team last year was not a 2-14 team. To have Joe Mixon, a 1,000-yard rusher who can catch the ball, to have Boyd just go nuts. Auden Tate did really well. I don't think they were a 2-14 team. So, I have questions about Joe Burrow and his system. So, I don't love anything. I do really like the over with the Bengals. Like the playoffs, kinda. I'll probably throw $20 on it it would be a fun win. But yeah, everything else, you stay away from the money. The money's not enticing.
You steer clear.
Yeah, so besides that's where I am.
At the very least, they're going to be fun to watch because the weapons are definitely there. And if Burrow is half of what people are thinking he is right out of the gate, they're going to be a fun watch. Maybe you play them on a week-to-week basis in a good spot or hit some overs because that defense is suspect at best and the offense is sneaky loaded. So, Zach, what about you, brother? What are you thinking here for the Bengals?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bengals, for the most part, to stay away from. I mean, the division that they're in, the Ravens are they're going to be nasty this year. Pittsburgh finally got Ben back. The jury, I think, is still kind of out on his health. And I think Cleveland's going to be tough. So they got to play all those teams twice. That's tough to do. So it's going to come down, I think, to the other teams in the NFL. I definitely can't see them making the playoffs, only because I think that there's going to be 3 AFC North teams making the playoffs this year, and to have 4 go, even with the new playoff structure, I don't see it happening. 5.5 games is definitely doable, but out of all the spreads, that's about all they could do, I think.
Okay. I'll drop it right now. I forgot to mention it a second ago, but I'll drop it now because we could touch on it a bit. It's a factor with all these teams. All 4, so the AFC East, all 4 of those teams are in top 5 for strength of schedule. All 4 of these teams are in the bottom 5 for strength of schedule. So I agree with both of you that there could be some good value there for the over 5.5, or the I won't do the long shot playoff play even for like a 20. Like I just don't see how it happens because I've been big on this division. Off camera, off mic with Brian and I think that you could see 3 teams coming out of this division for sure. So they're going to beat each other up in this division. So yeah, I don't see them making the playoffs. That is a fun bet though, something to cheer for, especially with that 7th seed. If if they're 7 and 8 or something like that, if you like them over 5.5, then you should be liking them to win 6, obviously 7 games. If they're 7 and 8 going into the last week, a win could possibly get them that last wild card the way things are this year. So there might be a small correlation play with the over on the wins and a long shot for them to hit the playoffs. Anybody anything left here to touch on the Bengals? We missed anything? I do love the weapons that are there now. Higgins, I think, is great. Good speed, take the top off. Boyd, we all know. What's AJ Green's health? Is he 100% rolling into this year? Do you know?
That's what we're hearing, but we're hearing that. But I mean, AJ Green, he's always 100% in this season, in the preseason, and you never see him all regular season. So who knows? I mean, if he plays 9 or 10 games, I think they'd be happy. But I honestly, it was said that he could have played weeks 15, 16, and 17 last year. So there's no reason to think he couldn't. There was just no reason to play last year in those last 3 games. They were going for Burrow, but many thought that he could have played. So I think he's healthy. The other thing I'd want to touch on, it's weird with the strength of schedule. You brought it up that this division has the best strength of schedule coming into the season, but it's like backwards. So Cincinnati has the 27th hardest schedule. The Browns have the 29th, Pittsburgh 31st, and Baltimore 32nd. That's the reverse of how they finished. So I don't know how Baltimore ends up, best team in the regular season last year ends up with the 32nd.
Oh, yeah, that is weird because it should be, the team that won the division should be playing the division winners, right? Yes, that is weird. I mean, I guess it's probably got to do with home and away and when it's lining up, I guess. But that's a good point right there. So, all right, Zach, you're good with the Bengals. I mean, there's not a lot to say about the Bengals, right?
Yeah, it's the Bengals.
It's the Bengals. Just be careful with your money if you're betting on the Bengals. At the end of the year, you could be saying to yourself, very likely, why did I bet on the Bengals? So, never.
If you're betting on the Bengals, you might want to stop what you're doing right now. Yeah. Go look in the mirror and ask yourself, where am I in life? I don't think it's going too well.
Matter of fact, if you're betting on the Bengals, go to my Twitter, send me a DM. I'll send you my Venmo. Just send me the money, and we'll call it even. You don't need to be. I'll bet for you. All right. Well, then, hey, let's roll on to the Browns here. Very popular team. Everyone was all over them last year. It stunk last year. I didn't like it last year. All the pundits, all the experts, everybody I knew in my personal life that bets. Oh, Browns this, Browns that. And I wasn't feeling it. First off, I hate when everybody is on one team that isn't the Chiefs, the Patriots, the Saints, But I think they have a shot. This year might be it. Now no one's on them. What's the numbers we're getting for Cleveland, Brian?
Well, first, let me bring you the results of our poll then, since we're on the Browns. Will the Browns make the playoffs? We have 80% of the vote at 95 votes say no, they will not make the playoffs.
Wow.
And 20% will say yes, they will make the playoffs.
I wonder
so that's kind of why I brought that up, because I just thought that was going to be interesting how quickly they have people just give no credit to Jarvis Landry, OBJ, Baker Mayfield. They really checked out on this team.
If you would have gave me like the over, like 60% on the over under on no or something, I would have went under. I thought people would be on them this year. I wonder if we can get any of our Twitter followers to take some action with me. If they can bet me, I'll bet them yes to make the playoffs, and I don't know, we'll give away stuff or something, or give away my money for probably betting on the Browns.
All right, here we go with their odds. So the Browns over under is 8.5 games, which for a team that many people don't think are going to make the playoffs, Vegas thinks their over under is 8.5. So the over is -110 and the under is also -110. So no real money to be made there. Do the Bengals make the playoffs? What does Vegas think? They're getting +108 on the yes and -130 on the no. AFC North odds, you have the Browns at +450. The AFC Championship, Browns +1,700, and Super Bowl, Browns +3,400.
+3,400 for the Browns in the Super Bowl. That's a little. I like that. You talk about throwing $20 on something. I might throw a 50 spot on that. Walk out 17 hundo. That's another stimulus check. A little more than a stimulus check, bro. Go spending those bucks. Zach, what you want to lead us off here, man? What do you think? I know, being a Steelers fan, your rivals here, I know you're probably not a huge fan of the Browns, but what do you think their ceiling is this offseason? You like any of those plays?
First of all, I like their first pick of the draft, and we got Wills, which that can only help. I like their over for their wins, 8.5. And then I think that's going to get them into the playoffs. Like I said, I mean, you're going to have a couple teams, the Ravens, Kansas City, maybe the Bills out of the AFC East that are going to have double-digit wins. But I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are in that bubble, 8-8, 9-7, things like that. And I think they're going to get in. And we've talked about Baker a lot. I think they're going to bounce back this year. I think another year together with the whole crew, new head coach. I think what they're doing up there is great. Let's see what else we got here. To win the division, I don't see that happening, barring some crazy injury. I can't see them winning the division.
And that's got to be like crazy, like Lamar Jackson goes down or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. And even if that happens, I mean, they have another backup that plays extremely similar to them.
Absolutely.
With a ton of weapons. So I definitely like them going 8.5, so 9 games. And I definitely like them in the playoffs for sure.
We were talking about Baker earlier before the show. A lot of Johnny Manziel comps, and I get it because where they came from, conference wise, where, how they look, the mustache kind of stuff, what are the play style, whatever. I've always liked Baker. I never liked Manziel when he came in, and you mentioned that it factor. And I don't think Manziel had that. And the thing with Manziel, it seemed like when he got embarrassed, when he got showed up and shut up in this league, he didn't care. I mean, he cared, but he didn't go and put the work in. Like, it hurt his ego, but he didn't try to rise above it. Baker, I don't think has that issue. I think Baker wants to shut some people up. He wants to work out, get better, go out there and do it. He's in the commercials, whatever. He's shotgunning beers at Indian games, like whatever. Have fun. It's your brand. It's your logo. It's you. You're selling yourself to the city. I love it. I think he loves being in Cleveland. He's got the weapons. He's got the talent. I think this is a big breakout year for Baker. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's so weird. But, I mean, he's a second-year guy, and there was so much pressure put on him, and a lot of it, I think, was because he is who he is, and he's so egotistical, and he's so cocky, and, like, he's throwing the Oklahoma flag on the Texas Tech logo, he's just a really cocky guy. He was telling everybody last year how great they were going to be, and, he didn't have a great year, but for a second-year quarterback, I mean, he was still of that class. He still, I think, had the best quarterback rating of Darnold, of Allen, of everyone but Lamar Jackson that was taken in the first round of that draft. If he wasn't so cocky, he's way better than Sam Darnold, but people are still really positive about Sam Darnold going into his third year, and everybody's just checked out on Baker. I think he has a great year. I love the Browns off season is probably, I really like the Dolphins off season. They had a lot of draft picks and money to spend, but the Browns really, really had a good off season.
Yeah.
Great draft, great signings. They get Myles Garrett back. Their best signing was their head coach. They have the best two-headed monster of running backs in the NFL. And they just brought their head coach in who will run the ball down your throat and take that pressure off of Baker. I love the Browns. I don't love the over-under. I don't love betting over-unders. The only way I'll usually do it is if it's, I'll throw it in with, like, if I'm betting them to make the playoffs and win the AFC North, which I'm not betting them to win the AFC North, but I'll throw it in a parlay with, like, the playoffs just to, like, add a little juice to that bet if I'm confident they're going to make the playoffs. I don't love betting over-unders. 8.5. I think they're going over. I think I would have the Browns probably 10, 11 wins, but, like, I just don't love betting that. I love them to make the playoffs. I think that's a lock. I have them second in the division behind the Ravens. If it wasn't for the Ravens being so I'd probably rate their offseason in the top 5. Unfortunately for the Browns, the Ravens were already way ahead of them, and I think the Ravens had one of the top 5 off seasons as well. So it makes it – if they were in just about anything but the AFC West, I'd probably throw money for them to win the division.
AFC North, but yes.
No, but besides, if they weren't in the North or also the West, any other division, I would probably throw some cash down on that. The Ravens are just a beast. So I can't really endorse putting money onto them. I might do it just to, like, much more likely to throw 20 on that than the Bengals to make the playoffs and to win North, because, like you said, Lamar Jackson goes down, which, we can't bet on injuries, but guy is not very big and takes 250 carries a year. So the likelihood of Lamar Jackson going down is not, we're not talking about, like, Aaron Rodgers going down for the year. We're talking about a running back going down for the year that also takes hits when he's passing. So, I might throw a little bit of money on that, but I do like the Browns. The AFC Championship game in the Super Bowl, because if everything does go well in Cleveland, I think that's what they're shooting for. I mean, their offense is just insane. So
it just needs to click. There's no excuses really this year. Yeah. It just needs to click.
So I probably won't throw. I don't know. There's a good chance. I won't say I won't bet on them to win the AFC Championship, because sometimes I just, like, look at the odds like that and be like, there's no way that, like, if you look at this roster and you don't remember last year and you put this roster up against other teams in the NFL, all
It's up
parts
there.
singular, not together as a team. They're top 5, top 7 roster in the NFL. So when you're
For
getting
sure.
set plus 1,700 to win the championship at that talented of a roster, it's not stupid. So yeah, they're definitely.
I
I think a
don't
lot of people are sleeping on them.
I don't like their wide receiver core out of their top, other than their top 2. I don't like the depth in the core, but something we haven't talked about yet, they brought in Austin Hooper, who was probably the top free agent tight end, if you don't count, Gronk or whatever. Hooper's on his way up, though. Gronk's on his way down. I would still count Hooper anyways. You add that now, and that big body, that speed, that he's a freak. And, you guys got me so fired up. I'm going off a script a little here, and I'm firing down my sure thing of the week. I'm locking it in right now. I'll touch it again at the end, but I'm going all in right now. Browns over 8.5. I'm putting my house up on this one. I'm putting the dog's sitting here annoying me, so he can go anyways. I'm putting it all on the Browns over 8.5. You mentioned it earlier, Stefanski. Dalvin Cook's a star. No one's going to make that dude a star. He is a star. Cook went down, and Stefanski made 2 other guys household names for fantasy and touchdowns, and they went off. But Alexander Mattson, and I don't even have written down who else there was.
Boontown.
Oh, yep, Boone. Yep. Stefanski knows offense, knows how to run the ball, knows what they're doing. The Vikings were a top 10 offense under this guy. Baker Mayfield's more talented than Kirk Cousins. He might not be a better quarterback right now, but he is way more talented than Kirk Cousins. Zach mentioned it. Jarek Wills, arguably the top O-lineman from this class. The defense is good. The defense is nasty. They got a great home field. The weather's tough. This division beats itself up. They just feast on each other. And I feel like the offense that, the offense that they run is going to be a run heavy. Chubb is a star in the making, already is a star. Kareem Hunt had a full year now. Now he's good. I think they plug him in a ton. You have a great 2-headed. They're going to pound the ball. It's going to be ground and pound, play action with Mayfield. You hit Odell over the top, Landry cutting across the middle, Hooper on a one-on-one. He's a mismatch nightmare. I love this team. Like you said, if they were in any other division other than the West, they're winning that division. It's tough with Baltimore and how good they are, how good the roster is, how well coached they are. We'll get to them. But yeah, my sure thing of the week right now, right here is over this 8.5 for the Cleveland Browns. Love them. Love that everyone's sleeping on them now too. Love that poll was 80% no. Everyone's sleeping on the Browns now. So yeah, this is the year for Cleveland. If they don't do it this year, I am off of them for at least a couple months. And then I'll come back and let them burn me again. You guys have anything else to say about the Browns?
I got to bring it back up. This is how good their offseason was. I forgot about Hooper when I was talking. But you said you don't love their depth at wide receiver, but they have depth at tight end, right? So They're going to be a run-heavy team. They have Njoku and Hooper on the edges there. But also they have one of the best signings of the year with Jack Conklin, a very young elite right tackle. The only thing I don't understand is the tackle they drafted, Willis, is better suited to play right tackle, and Conklin's better suited to play right tackle. But it doesn't matter. Their O-line was the only thing that was holding them back last year. So whoever ends up at left and whoever ends up at right, they're going to be way better than they were last year. So again, just make it easier to just pound the ball into teams. And like we said at the beginning, they have the 29th easiest schedule in the NFL. So, or 29th hardest. So the 3rd or 4th easiest schedule. So yeah, I'm don't sleep on the Browns as everyone in the country
They're in a good spot. And Hooper and Njoku are good run blockers too. They're good blocking tight ends as well as pass catchers. Zach, do you have anything else that you want to throw in on Cleveland now after hearing me ramble, Brian ramble?
No, you guys are good. I think making the AFC Championship game, if I was feeling frisky, like that would definitely be one that, it's definitely a possibility. And although I'm a Steelers fan, like there's a part of me that really wants to see Cleveland be good, And I think, like you said, if it's not this year, I don't think it's ever going to be a year. They got to do it this year. At least make the playoffs. Winning a playoff game for that city would just be amazing. So as much as I love to hate them, like I also would love to see that city do something. So
you're not the first Steelers fan I've heard say that. It seems people just want the Browns to be good. Like the Cleveland Browns should be good at football.
Right. Well, it's so hard to hate the Browns. Like,
yeah.
Plus I'm a Syracuse guy, and like I know Jim Brown was way before my time, but like they've always just had like this weird little special place in my heart. So
they're lovable losers.
Yeah, they're like a little brother you just love to beat up on, but like you always want them to achieve.
I think their greatest addition this year was addition by subtraction, and it was getting rid of Freddie Kitchens. He blew – do you know how many times last year – well, you wouldn't know, but an embarrassing amount of times I bet the Browns last year, and they would be down 5 or whatever, getting 3.5, whatever it is, and it would be under a minute left, first and goal from the 1, and they would run it 4 times and get stuffed, and that was the game. It happened like 4 times. I know that sounds like a lot, but it might have happened even more. Horrible play calling cost them like 6 games. All right, so we'll move on. We dove in a lot to the Browns. It seems like everybody is pretty high on the Browns, except for our Twitter followers are not too high on the Browns. Next up, we got the Baltimore Ravens, the defending AFC North champions, and the last team that I lost a bet on. I had the Ravens in their playoff game big time, and they lost. Won everything out after that, so maybe it was like a good omen or something. I don't know. What are the numbers here for the Ravens, B-Rye?
We have the Ravens over-under is 11.5. Their over is plus 105. The under is minus 125. Their odds of making the playoffs, is minus 750. The no is plus 500. The AFC North, they are the favorites at minus 200. The AFC Championship games, they are actually co-favorites for the AFC Championship with the Kansas City Chiefs, each at plus 300. And their to win the Super Bowl is plus 700, which is a perennial. I think they're number 2, and they're the same to win the AFC Championship with the Chiefs, but I think the Chiefs actually are more of a favorite to win the Super Bowl. I don't know how that works, but that's how it is.
I think what happens there is that they would be whoever they play. They would be favored over the NFC that was represented. You know what I mean? So whoever the highest NFC team is, they like the AFC team over that NFC. They like the Chiefs over. Was it probably the Saints? I haven't looked at the Super Bowl odds lately, but yeah. So that's how that goes. Baltimore is going to be tough. I don't even remember who kicked us off last time. So Brian, why don't you get in here and tell me about the Baltimore Ravens and what you like out of these numbers?
Yeah, and I mean the numbers you can't love because they are what they're going to do. The Ravens had a great offseason. They stole Calais Campbell from the Jaguars on their Trevor Lawrence sale that they were having in the offseason. So they stole him. They signed Derek Wolfe. They drafted J.K. Dobbins because that's what that team needed, was another 1,000-yard rusher. I can't even imagine how many yards this team's going to run for this year. Again, the only thing that I don't love about the Ravens, Lamar Jackson is insane, but when you play that style of football, you put the team, you're at risk all the time. You're taking the same amount of hits as any running back, and then you're taking all the hits that a quarterback takes. But yeah, I don't love any of this. I do love one of my favorite players, and again, I'm going off to another show, but I love Hollywood Brown to have a breakout year. I love him in fantasy, but I'll be looking at people have really slept on him. He wasn't healthy last year, but he's still, 2-3 catches a game, he would really blow up. So I'm looking at his prop bets for sure this year. I'm going to like his overs, I think, on everything. I really think he's going to break out, and there's no way you can concentrate on any one of their wide receivers with their tight ends, their running backs. So I love that. But yeah, I'm staying away maybe on the Super Bowl. I tend to put some money on the favorites because, even the Ravens, really good chance of doing it. You still get 7 times your money, so it's not bad. So I kind of like that. There's not really money appealing enough. I'll probably run up a parlay that, to look at all their over or their under the AFC North, the AFC Championship game, just because you throw 4 or 5 bets together and you get a little bit better cash. But yeah, I just don't love the money line there, but I do like the Ravens' chances of getting to the AFC Championship game for sure. I can't pick anyone over the Chiefs right now, but
yeah, they're about as square as it gets. There's no great numbers. No, they're not sneaking up on anybody. The only thing you can do is if you think you got a feel for something is to go against them. And do you really want to do that? What they should be focusing on, and it didn't seem they were in the offseason, especially adding Dobbins, they need to worry about beating the Chiefs. They don't need to worry about winning this division because they've done that. They should have been focusing on beating the Chiefs and matching themselves up with that, because that could be a long-term battle. This could be a rivalry for the next 10. This is the next Brady Manning, Mahomes Jackson. It's going to be exciting. Hopefully it is. But the draft confused me a little bit. The Calais Campbell, rich get richer. That defense is always good. It's always well coached. Harbaugh knows what he's doing. But I was a little confused. I love Dobbins. We've talked before. We thought Miami was going to try to sneak up and get him when he fell a bit. Or not even fell, but when he fell for what the fans wanted. But it's just a little – they're great. They're great. They're the far and away favorite to win the division. But
I think Ingram's in a contract year, so I think that's to make sense of the Dobbins. I think this is Ingram's last year in his deal.
For sure, and he's had some injury issues. For sure. I understand it. Yeah. But I also like Gus Edwards, who they have, and Justice Hill is solid. I mean, they're not as, blue chip touted as Dobbins, but I guess that's a long-term draft pick, which I like. But they could have used an immediate wide receiver, if whoever was there on the board, or something, because this wide receiving core is not great. Zach, what do you think about the Ravens this year?
I mean, I like the Ravens. They're going to be tough. I was actually kind of upset about them taking Dobbins because they picked just a couple spots before the Steelers, and I was hoping for a new healthy running back. But I like Patrick McQueen out of LSU, that linebacker they picked up, because their defense was good all year until they had to play against Derrick Henry, and he just ran all over them. So they're definitely going to have to stop the run this year. I don't know if Derrick Henry will do exactly what he did last year, but that's to be seen. As far as the AFC Championship game, I think that would be a solid one. I would say the Chiefs are going to go to the Super Bowl. And last time I checked, I think they're favored in every game this year. The Ravens are.
They are.
And there's 2 games that I would pay attention to. One of them is the Chiefs. That's a Monday night game. I love night games. The pressure's on. And I think that game could come down to where the AFC Championship game ends up getting played. And then Thanksgiving, they play at Pittsburgh, and that's a night game as well. And Pittsburgh has a weird ability to win night games against
Absolutely.
good teams.
That's a tough place to play at night in prime time too. Yeah.
So I definitely have them. I would say they're definitely going to win at least 12 games. Definitely making the playoffs. I would have them winning the North, and I could put them in the AFC Championship game, but I can't see them get past that. But, for early bets, throw a couple bucks on them for the Super Bowl. You can't really go wrong with that. So
no, that's throwing good money around is what that's just a safe little play that, you can't argue that. You mentioned Patrick Queen. I like this kid I haven't seen the numbers yet. Stuff is out where we get our numbers from, FanDuel. I didn't know if it was on there yet. FanDuel, that's 3 times we've called you out and you haven't called us out yet. Come on, hook, throw a bone, Patrick Queen, I texted my buddy, a friend of mine that I talk football with when they took him. I was like, hey, this kid's going to be the pick of the draft. Like, this is going to be a Hall of Fame linebacker. I love Patrick Queen. The dude's all over the field. He reminds me of guys they've had before in that, they have had Hall of Fame linebackers up and down that linebacking core. If you're looking at a prop play, though, like what I was getting at earlier, Patrick Queen for Defensive Player of the Year. The number's not going to be
Rookie of the Year, not Defensive Player of the Year.
Maybe. What do you know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm taking that huge. Maybe I like him a lot. No, you're absolutely right. Defensive Rookie of the Year. Thank you very much, Brian. You can't go wrong with that. The dude, he's not going to probably be in the top 3, so you could get a good number on him. There's going to be a few guys ahead of him, obviously. But Baltimore, whatever. If you got a feeling, you can go against him if you want. It's probably not smart money. But I like him over – that number's high. I hate going over that high. This is a stay away from me. If I had gun to my head, if I had to take something – I'd probably just lay a good amount of money on the division, but then that's never fun either because this is a tough division. You could end up losing $400 trying to make 2, So the over's there for a little bit, especially at plus money, but 12 games is a lot of wins. So I think it's all a stay away from me. But does then other Patrick Queen, though, shout out Patrick Queen. I'll try to get him on the pod. I'll text him after the game.
Dude, not only is he talented, but no one's going to touch him all year long. With Calais Cameron, Derek Wolfe,
yeah.
I forget who is their nose. He is a beast, and I never remember his name. He missed one game last year against the Browns, and they ran for like 400 yards against him.
The kid who's been there for forever, been there for a while. The Samoan dude or whatever, right? Or he's Asian or starts with an N.
They have a really good defensive tackle. I forget his name right now. I'll do my better homework, but. And then Matthew Judon's re-signing him. No one's gonna touch Queen.
No,
he's gonna roam that field and just make plays after plays after plays.
He'll be all over the place, and that's how he operates. So there couldn't have been a better place for him to go. I don't think a better fit for them, a better fit for him. I think it's great, and that's why I love him, Defensive Rookie of the Year, because he's gonna have every opportunity to shine on that defense. They're on national TV. He's gonna be seen. So he's going to get a chance to do a lot. Zach, you're all set with the Ravens here. I like what you said. I think that's the way to play it is the way that you said it.
Yeah, I'm good, man.
All right. Moving on. Our final team, saving the best for last for our boy Zach, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Big Ben is back, baby. I heard he's been drinking and golfing and just gearing up for the season big time. I love Big Ben. He's the last of that 04 class, close but still hanging around. Who else do we got? Was Rivers taken with them?
Rivers,
Rivers, Manning.
They're the last 2, right?
Yep.
So Big Ben's back, baby. Big Ben's healthy. What do we got for numbers with the Steelers here?
Yes, Zach Steelers. Their over/under is 9. Their minus 110 on the over and minus 110 on the under. The chance to make the playoffs is yes is minus 134. The no is plus 110. The AFC North is plus 340. The AFC Championship is plus 1,200. And the Super Bowl is plus 2,400 on your Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm surprised that AFC and that Super Bowl is a little – those aren't a ton of value. Those are a little lower than I would have thought. Vegas kind of liking Steelers a little bit. Maybe they're thinking that Pittsburgh can sneak up on some people. Zach, come on. We're going to let our boy Zach, the Pittsburgh Steeler fan, kick us off on this one. What are your boys doing this year? Give me some good news here because I want to bet Pittsburgh.
Well, some good news is Devin Bush. So a lot of people don't think about Devin Bush because they picked up Fitzpatrick and he just kind of overshadowed everything in that defense. But they didn't play Bush as much as they could have. Even Tomlin talked about how he needed more time to get into the defense, and they're going to be playing him more. They lost Anthony Chickillo, but I think because they have Devin Bush, he's going to be all over the place. As far as the numbers are concerned, I mean, I definitely like them going to the playoffs. I definitely going over for 9. This is another one of those bets that I wouldn't mind making as far as them. Now, I wouldn't have them winning the AFC North, but I could see them making a run in the playoffs. As good as the Ravens are, they're still young. You know, I mean, it showed last year they got into, you know, the big game and they couldn't close it out. Again, Derrick Henry's a freak, but I could see them winning the AFC Championship game. That could be some risky money, but those are the kind of bets that I like to put down. So for somebody like me that wouldn't mind, I would do that. And Super Bowl, I mean, it'll be tough, but I could definitely see them going. But it's all going to come down to retooling this year. You know, there's been in the last 2 years have been a nightmare. With Ben going down last year and then playing a 47th string quarterback through most of the year, it was difficult. And even with that being said, they still were 8-8. You know, if it had been this year, they would have made the playoffs, which I don't think they were worthy of, you know. And with Tomlin's been catching a lot of heat, which I don't think is justified. I think he's one of the best coaches. I think he's the best coach not named Bill Belichick.
Oh, wow. I was going to
to
ask you if you thought he had been sliding on his laurels a little bit, sliding on his name, because he is catching a lot of heat, and he built up a really good he built up some goodwill early in his career there, but you still got his back, huh?
I still got his back, but I think some of it's justified too. You know, they're one of those teams that, you know, will go and beat the Ravens on Thanksgiving, but then lose to the Bengals at home, you know? So I think that there is some justification. I think sometimes Tomlin is too much of a player's coach and, you know, isn't keeping those guys focused. But I think they're going to have a good year, and I'm really hoping for Ben's sake. And as far as the team's concerned, I mean, the offseason wasn't terrible. Personally, I would have liked to seen them pick up a quarterback. You know, maybe next year we'll do that. But that Chase Claypool out of Notre Dame, he's a big target. And we haven't had a big wide receiver since now I can't even think of the guy's name, but he couldn't stop smoking the weed and ended up getting kicked out of the league. But we've had, you know, small receivers, so hopefully this kid can step his game up. Tight end's healthy, and, you know, we'll see what ends up happening. And then we picked up Eric Ebron too, so I'm excited about that connection. You know, if we can keep a tight end healthy and we have two of them, we should be all right. So my picks, they're definitely going to the playoffs, definitely going over 9 games. You know, and like I said, I'm probably going to end up putting some money down on them for the AFC Championship.
Chase Claypool is the only player that I have written down under my Pittsburgh Steelers stuff on what to talk about. I'm a Notre Dame fan also. I love Notre Dame football. Chase Claypool was a great pick. Brian and I talked about it on draft night when they took him. We both loved him. Dude's a big body, speed, great hands, huge catch radius. That kid is going to be good with someone who has a cannon like Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger's accurate too. He's had, you know, sometimes he tries to throw it too hard. He relies on that strong arm, and it looks that he's inaccurate, but he's not. That dude's got a good arm, knows where to put the ball. He's a vet. I love Claypool this year. The receiving core, you know, before I started doing a little more homework on, you know, for tonight's pod, I was a little concerned about the receiving core. But that James Washington, you know, came on and played some good football. He's a good football wide receiver. He may be a good fantasy wide receiver. Those are two separate things, obviously, but this dude's a good NFL wide receiver already with a ton of room to grow. Juju Smith is Juju. It was a down year last year, right? I never had him in fantasy, so I wasn't up on him big, but both the guys are nodding here. He was down a little bit. Obviously Mason Rudolph throwing footballs around, your numbers are going to be down at wide receiver because that dude is just garbage. I've lost money on him. I'd like to hit him with a helmet or whatever. Brian, is that too soon? No, maybe, no, you might be right. I don't know. You can't go around swinging helmets at dudes. I get it. So maybe it was too soon. We got to wait till this year, see if he's walking straight now or dizzy or whatnot. I'm sure there's some. We won't even get into that. Never mind. Brian, what? Before I get in trouble here with the NFL concussion protocol, what do you think of Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I have no idea. Pittsburgh is really tough because, like Zach said, they did not address the backup quarterback. And, it's a 38-year-old Ben Roethlisberger who I love when he's playing and he's healthy, but he's 38 years old coming off a shoulder injury. That's not great, I like their wide receiver core a lot. Deontay Johnson was really good last year. I said his name right, Zach? Is that correct?
Yeah, you got yep.
I think that dude is a legit number one. Letting Juju go back to the slant or go back to the slot. I like their running backs. I'm still angry at Connor last year because I took him at the end of the first round in my fantasy draft, and that did not work out well. Although I did trade him real late for Devontae Adams when Devontae Adams was injured, and so that worked out for me. But yeah, I like their running game. They didn't have a lot of draft picks, but I love what they did with the little they had. Chase Claypool, if you guys have touched on, he doesn't make sense. He's a one of the fastest wide receivers at the combine, and he's also bigger than most tight ends. He's just a beast. I like that. Their third round pick, Alex Highsmith, is definitely underrated, just an overachiever at a small school. And then I love what they added in the fourth round with McFarland out of Maryland is what this team lacked last year in the running game. They had with Samuel and Connor, they have two guys that can pound it. They lack that breakaway speed. And, when you're beating people up in the middle with a good, solid running game, you need to have that change of pace back that can come in and just take one to the house when the soul's broken on the defense. So I like that. Their defense is nasty. This team finished 8-8 last year with two guys who probably shouldn't be in the NFL at quarterback. So it's just weird. I guess my weird thing is Roethlisberger. I don't like betting on a 38-year-old coming back from a massive shoulder injury. Thank God he shaved that beard because he was looking like he was in Lord of the Rings. And I don't think he would have been able to play this year with that. But yeah, it's just they have an easier schedule outside of the division. But if the Browns are who I think the Browns are going to be, someone's got to pay the price for that. I don't think it's going to be the Ravens. I think it's going to be the Steelers. But I could be wrong. That defense could carry them to the Super Bowl. So I guess when we're talking about money, and especially my wife's money with her new baby, I don't love putting money down on that injury. I like a lot of what they did. I like a lot of their players. I hate Minkah Fitzpatrick, but he's a beast. So I can see them I could literally see them be like, you just cleaning up on the under and not make the playoffs and stuff like that because Roethlisberger doesn't come back. But I could also see them winning the Super Bowl. And the Steelers have a knack of like every 4 or 5 years just ending up in a Super Bowl that no one ever thought they would end up in. And it's been about that time. So they're due. I'm not throwing money on it. I like a lot of their moves, but it's just a tough one to place a finger on.
It is. This is a tough division to gauge because while, gun to head, maybe I should find a new comparison for that. I say it like 4
helmet
times
to head.
So yeah, maybe that. You could take, Baltimore is the team that's winning this division. That's just the assumption right now, percentage wise. But Pittsburgh or Cleveland could get that last playoff spot. They could get either one of the wild card spots. Something happens in Baltimore, they could both win this division. It's kind of everything behind Baltimore is tough to kind of figure out, that Pittsburgh and Cleveland situation. I think the strength of schedule stuff and how weak their schedules are, you could sell me on Pitt or Cleveland making the playoffs. And, Pitt's a more veteran team led by a veteran quarterback who's been there, who's been great, who just sat around for a year off of him sitting around is probably not good because he's probably not, from all things that have been reported, not recovering in the greatest of ways. But hey, whatever. This dude was never a stud athlete or looked like a stud athlete. The dude's the dad bod out there just rocking it, slinging the football, dude. Like that's what it used to be. So, not used to be for all the guys. Who was the old, Stabler? Used to just smoke and drink and throw footballs, man. Like that's what these dudes do. Big Ben is old school, so I'm not worried about Ben. If Ben's healthy, he's going to be slinging. James Conner worries me. I was never a big James Conner fan. I sold him high when he had some good games. Glad I did in fantasy. Anthony McFarland. There's a lot of people that think Anthony McFarland was one of the top running backs in this draft. He played the majority of last season at the University of Maryland with a high ankle sprain. This dude's a freak. He is fast. He cuts crazy. He's got good hands. This kid is explosive. He has a ton of upside. And to get him in the 4th round when guys like Edward-Helaire, Dobbins, Swift are going a lot earlier, this kid, I think this is the guy. Pittsburgh's not sold on James Conner. They're not committing to James Conner. Clearly, if they just took him, they have Snell too, who they used a little bit. And then, they draft a guy. If they loved Conner, Snell's a good backup. They wouldn't have taken McFarland. I could see McFarland being the starting running back within a few weeks and the explosion of this offense. At the very least, him catching balls. James Conner, McFarland's a better pass catcher than James Conner. Let me just say that. James Conner's okay using him every down because he can catch the ball a bit. McFarland is a better athlete, faster, better hands than James Conner. So we could see this kid, Anthony McFarland, bring a whole new dynamic to this offense. But when it comes to gambling, I mean, you don't want to lay huge money for Baltimore to win this division. You don't want to try to jump that huge over. Either bet Baltimore to win the AFC East or the Super Bowl. If you're a fan, maybe then do that. But it's got to be Pitt or Cleveland. If I can find a prop bet, either Pitt or Cleveland makes the playoffs, I would put whatever on. That number should be decent, like not too high. I would take that. One of these two teams, book it right now, whatever. Put it on my sheet if you have to. Cut this part out. Pittsburgh or Cleveland is getting in at the very least. So, all right. Hey, that's the whole division. Does anybody else have anything to touch on? Anything that we missed before we fire into the sure thing of the week here?
I think to bring it back to what Zach said at the beginning, I struggled with this on the poll was, do 3 teams in this division make the playoffs? And you could really see that the AFC East isn't a powerhouse with the Pats stepping down. I don't really like anyone behind Houston in the South. I think we could see Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh all end up in the playoffs, which you don't see too. But also we have 7 playoff teams now, so I think that could happen.
I think just based off of what I've said already, my stance on that. I 100% agree that 3 teams could come out of this. The AFC East, it's probably only going to be one of the teams. I mean, maybe you don't like the Patriots, Brian, at all this year, but there is a world where New England wins the division, Buffalo wild card, or vice versa. We can't count them out until they're dead with that team. They have to be showing no pulse before you call it. At least that's how I feel. The AFC West, the Chiefs are going to run that division. There's no one behind them that you really like too much. And the AFC South, they all just beat up on each other. Jacksonville's way out of it. And Tennessee, Houston, and I try to think on the fly here, the 4th to Indy.
Colts.
They got Phil Rivers now who knows what you're going to get. But it's usually low win totals is what I'm saying in that division. So, yeah, I 100% think 3 teams could come out of this division. Zach, where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any way that there's not 3 teams coming out of that division. I mean, you guys talked about the division leaders. In each of the divisions, the one team, I know we're talking about AFC North, but the one team I would look out for, in all honesty, is the Broncos with Locke out there. Like they could definitely be dangerous, and nobody's paying attention to them.
Yes.
But besides the obvious division leaders, after that, it's all jumbled up. I think it's going to come down to the last 2 weeks of the season for the Browns for sure. I'm hoping that it doesn't happen for the Steelers, but I definitely think there's 3 teams coming out of there.
Well, in agreement here. That's some hot
The only
takes.
way that doesn't happen, I think, is Roethlisberger goes down again.
Absolutely.
Outside of Ben getting injured, I think it's 3 for sure.
Absolutely. Unless they call me out of retirement to come take Rudolph's
If it
job.
wasn't for that knee, man, you would be there.
I know. I would have went pro, dude, if it wasn't for the bum knee. I love the Bronco talk. AFC West, I'll be all over that. I'm with you, Zach. I like the Broncos to make some noise this year. They're crazy deep and reloaded. All right. Hey, well, let's, there ain't nothing to it but to do it. Let's fire into this bad boy. Our sure thing of the week. What do we got, boys? Give me something to make some money because we are in hard times over here. This economy is killing me. Actually, I think the economy is good right now. I don't really follow anything. I don't know. I want to buy a four-wheeler, so I don't know how that factors in. Give me something I can win a bet and buy a four-wheeler with. Brian, give me a sure thing I can win a four-wheeler with.
Yeah, my sure thing of the week is I like if it's a little bit of gambling, but I really don't think it is. I think the Browns make the playoffs. It hasn't happened in a really long time, but I do not see a world where this Cleveland Brown team does not get at least a wild card. So I love the Browns to make the playoffs. That's my sure thing of the week.
At plus 108, correct? Right? Is what we had that FanDuel has it at plus 108. Man, yep. you would like it to be a little higher for a team that hasn't made the playoffs in forever. I wish
you can't look at that roster and not have them a favorite to make the playoffs.
Vegas hedges them a little bit because they're due to blow up. Vegas can't lose a ton, but no one's on them this year. So that number, last year it had to be way worse.
Let's just make our money off of Twitter. If you voted no on that poll for the Browns to make the playoffs, Jimmy and I will take all bets.
I will take all bets, bro. I don't know. Brian will back them all. I'll take them. I'll write them down.
Please at me on that one. I want to make some money on the Browns in the playoffs.
Brian, I'll back some of them. I'll put up a little bit of my position on it. Zach, what do you got for a sure thing, brother?
Sure thing. I got to go with the Steelers over 9. When I first looked at their schedule, just looking at it quickly, I was like, there's 11 wins here, maybe 12. Of course, barring all injuries, but I'm feeling good. Ben is back. We got Claypool. Tomlin has been on the hot seat that he shouldn't be on. The front office is good. The city is good. The fans are the best. I think they're going to have an awesome year this year. So over 9 wins for the Steelers. That's what I'm going with.
Black and yellow. All right, let's go. I might throw some money on both of them. I might be betting this division up and down, I think. I like this division. My sure thing of the week, we already talked about it, the Cleveland Browns over 8.5 wins. The coaching change, I think, is the huge thing. That's my number one thing. That's my favorite thing. You can have really good teams that are really poorly coached, and they will play really bad. I think Odell, he can't pass the blame onto everybody else for everything. This dude hasn't performed since he's been there. You're trying to tell me that Eli Manning's arm, and he's a better – Eli wasn't that good either, and Odell put up numbers. Like, now come in here, be a leader, keep your mouth shut, don't throw anybody under the bus, don't be throwing fits, play football and help some of these kids. You know what I mean? You've been in the league a long time. Get on these guys, help these guys, make this team better. I love Cleveland this year. I gave you the Patrick Queen Defensive Rookie of the Year too as an extra. I'm in with these guys. I'm Pitt over Cleveland making the playoffs. I like it all.
One more on this is a sleeper for the Browns is Kevin Stefanski. I don't know what the odds are, but for him, for the coach of the year, I mean, this is what you look for. A guy coming out of nowhere with a team that hasn't made the playoffs, but he's walking into a roster it's a 10-11 win roster that he just, fell over backwards into. First-year coaches don't usually get that. I'm sure the money is pretty good on it. I'm looking at that for sure.
Yeah, I'll throw a taste on that. I like that a lot. Especially, if they make the playoffs at 8-8, he's got to be in consideration. They won't be like, oh, look at all this talent that he had to work with. Well, what did this talent do before him? So yeah, that's a very good call, Brian. Thank you. I'll be in on that. That's a good heads up, brother. I like that. I might get on the adjusted line over Browns 9.5. See what the number is for that. You're right. This is the making of a 10-11 win team. I think, and if they go under this 8, I don't want to hear from them or their fans ever again. I'm done. I don't want to hear it. It'll be like the Cowboys. Like, I'm done listening to you guys until you do something, except for you can throw a rock and hit a Cowboys fan. Unfortunately, I don't even know any Cleveland fans. So it's really only on like Bleacher Report. I see them in the comments talking about how great they are. All right. Hey, that was a sure thing. Anybody got anything to close out on?
Just Zach, thanks for joining us. I know you worked a long day today. You definitely had a lot of great insight, and it was cool to have you, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's nice. I've never done one of these before, but it's got me
really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I only ever talk football like to talk football. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just got me all fired up because I look forward to football from the day that the Super Bowl ends until preseason.
Absolutely.
We have the draft in there, which the draft is always amazing. I'm so glad they did that this year because there's no losers in the draft. You know what I mean? Like it's all good things. So
I kind of liked it even a little better because the guys who like they had a chance to be with even more family. You know what I mean? Some of those guys don't even go to the draft, and then some of them they can only bring a small amount of family. That way they got to celebrate with a ton of people. You know, I felt bad they didn't get to walk on stage, put the hat on, all that. But our boy Tua, man, he was with his whole family down there. It was great. I'm glad they did it too. People needed it for sure. It was something great to talk about for a few days. And Zach, I didn't know you never done something like this before, a podcast, talk some football. Dude, you did great. A hell of a job, man.
No, it was fun. I'm excited.
We'll have you on something again as we get closer to the season. We start talking actual games. All right.
Anytime, man.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, man. And for everybody else, thank you as well. My name is Jimmy Kearns. He's Brian Byrne. And for our boy Zach joining us here, hopefully we see him again. Hopefully we see you again here on the Sure Thing on the Fin Addicts Network. We're peacing out. Fins up.
Fins up.
Foes down. Later, guys.